Help support our coverage with a free account on Privacy, the service that keeps your bank information private when shopping online. Take control of your subscriptions and other recurring payments, plus pause and close privacy cards at any time. And get $5 right now to try the service at collision.live/privacy. And we have our next guest who is here in that capacity. Hello.
Greetings, how are you?
Fantastic, how are you?
I'll say hello and bonjour.
Yes.
Bonjour.
Go ahead and introduce yourself for us.
Sure. I'm David Blumberg. I'm the founder and managing partner at Blumberg Capital. We are a early stage focused venture capital fund, so precisely on target for your discussion. We operate mostly in North America and Israel. We invest in companies that often have no product. They're a creation of the founder's mind, and we help them grow and scale and add the resources and both financial, business development, customers, talent acquisition that they need along the way.
Wow.
Sometimes we'll throw a little bit of strategy advice. They don't always take it. And we've been doing this for about 30 years, managing about $550 million US dollars in terms of assets under management across 5 different funds.
Wow.
We have a current portfolio of about 4 companies.
Okay.
One was announced today. And it's so exciting to be a venture capitalist because you can feel the energy here at the conference. We're dealing with people that are creating the future right in front of our eyes. So sometimes people say, what's it like to be a venture capitalist? And I say, well, it's a little bit like being the captain of a submarine with a periscope up that looks into the future. And it's fun. You know, you want to watch out for crashes and don't hit a coral reef, but there's a lot of beauty and dynamism and growth in front of us.
For sure. So you basically get to live in this energy.
That's right.
That's cool.
I feel very blessed, and my colleagues as well. Think about this. Every day is different. I never have the same day twice in terms of what I need to think about. We have, again, many companies, so each of them are facing different stages of growth. We have companies that are worth $7 billion that are public and facing different issues than ones that are just starting up and launching and thinking about their first press release or their first product launch. We have companies that are trying to scale and hire 100 or 200 people in a year in tight market conditions right now.
That's a big hire.
Right? We have companies that are creating new technologies that have never existed before, and they're the real path breakers. We have others that are trying to break into existing markets, and so they have to offer a different market entry strategy.
Yeah.
It's not new, but it has to be improved.
Right.
So every day is different, the personalities are different, and I knew from early on in my career that I wanted to work with young teams at the early stage so that we'd have the most impact.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so wonderful about early stage venture capital. It's a two-way street. They give to us a lot of their great ideas. We give to them our experience, our capital.
Right.
And together we build something hopefully better.
That's really great.
Yes.
Let's say we're working on a product, right?
Sure.
And we're getting ready to pitch you.
Yes.
What are the important things for us to know?
Excellent question, and I think I have a pretty well-prepared answer because I've been asked that question a few times.
I would imagine so.
We've, in fact, developed a nice mnemonic. It's called the 6 T's.
Okay.
And these are all words that start with T that an entrepreneur can think about so that they put them all into their pitch deck or their elevator presentation or their information that they send to anyone who wants to know about them. First thing you want to talk about is what is the problem that is being solved?
Okay.
Why is it a big problem? Why is it a hard problem? And why does our solution work better than others?
Okay.
So first is the theme, the problem. Second is the team. Who is going to do it? Even the best idea managed by a weak team is probably not going to go far.
Right.
A great team will take a weak idea and improve it. So first we have the theme, then we have the team. Then there is the terrain, which is a T word for the market. Tell us what it looks like. Who are the competition? Who are we selling it to? Who are we selling it to? What are the trends in the market? Is it moving from a product like traditional automobiles to a service like car sharing? So talk about the trends. So that is the theme, the team, the terrain. Then I would call it timing. And that's a way of saying, how do we get to the market? How do we access? Are we going to sell directly to consumers? Are we going to go through distribution partnerships with large corporations? Are we selling enterprise to enterprise? So that's the timing. Then there's the technology.
Okay.
How do we build it? What's the secret sauce, right? What are the terms? What kind of money do you need to start up? And what's the budget? How are you going to spend it? And so on. And so those are the T's that we use to evaluate your product, and it's our first cut at things.
Okay.
Then after you get past that, and we think it's a large market, it's a good team, it's a difficult problem, it has barriers to entry, then we would go deeper with you and check on things like your background personally. You know, have you done what you said you do at previous companies? If you failed, which is fine, did you learn from it? Have you acted in an ethical way in your career? Do you have a team attitude rather than a ego-driven attitude?
Yeah.
These are all the kinds of things we're trying to get the soft skills, that understanding of, are we going to get along? Because the venture capital relationship with the entrepreneurs lasts longer than, unfortunately, the average American marriage. And so we need to get along and work with others. And frankly, it's quite a complicated family. We have not just the entrepreneurs, say the two of you, and the first venture firm that invests, but then we build the syndicate. Later stage investors come along, and sometimes you have a concatenation now of 10, 12 different groups around the table.
Right.
So it gets harder and harder to keep everything in order.
Yeah, definitely.
And to keep it aligned to the vision.
And the interests of the different shareholders, because luckily, if a company's doing well, the business starts to drive. Otherwise, sometimes the shareholders can drive in different directions, and then the company might get pulled apart or driven off a cliff.
Which is obviously something we see semi-frequently.
Yes.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why there's a huge percentage of startups that don't make it. Yeah. It's sometimes the management team fights and goes in different directions. There's all kinds of reasons why that 90% number exists.
And you have to be able to determine that in your position.
Absolutely true. I would say the key reason that we have found that startups don't succeed is a lack of product market fit. The targeting isn't right. And that is no blame to the engineers. In fact, we always say, oh no, the blame is to the board and to the management. A jokey way of saying that is that what's the difference between marketing, so the business of management, and engineering? Well, an engineer doesn't know how to lie. A marketer doesn't know when they're lying. It's kind of mean. But the point is that the engineers generally don't fail. They generally build what they're asked to build.
Right.
But what has been spec'd out doesn't meet the exact need.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah. So then they run out of money because then the VCs see, oh, this is not working. There's not enough demand. You've built it, but people are saying, so what? That's the worst thing you want to hear. Worst thing you could hear. Yes.
So that crosshair, it tends to be finding two disparate groups and finding a way to bring those two together that need to come together.
That's right.
Those tend to be the big successes, right? Two different groups that need each other but don't know how to find each other.
I'd only make one correction.
Okay.
A big group needs to be on the demand side, but amazing things can come from small packages.
Absolutely.
Tiny startups, just a few people can create magnificent growth.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it doesn't have to be a big group on both sides. It could be just, 2, 3, 5 individuals who have a wonderful mission, the skills to execute, and the perseverance to get through the difficult times, financed appropriately. Then they can address thousands, millions, billions of people with great products over time. So
absolutely.
I agree with you.
So like with Uber, which is, being with their IPO, Uber and Lyft recently, they're highly in the news.
Of course.
They brought together drivers and riders in a way that didn't require all of the big infrastructure of the taxi cabs and the dispatchers and all of that stuff. They brought two groups together that needed to be together but didn't know how to find each other.
That's correct. They brought a latent supply to a latent demand.
Right.
That the taxi monopoly industries with the medallions and so on were just not in a situation to create or unlock.
Yes.
And we've seen this over and over and over, where you expand the market by lowering the cost, bringing in new entrants. It makes it a bigger, better opportunity.
Absolutely.
I mean, think of how many more passenger miles are in comfortable, happy conditions, and how many thousands, millions of dollars are being generated in careers by this new group of entrants that just did the same thing, but in a simpler, easier way, and unlocked all that latent demand and latent supply.
A way
it's
more
awesome.
direct way of doing it.
Absolutely.
I as a software engineer,
my heroes,
doing consulting work, I worked for a company who literally built taxi dispatch software, and we said, why don't you get rid of this middle tier?
Bingo.
And they said it would never work. They could be the big guys today if that one stupid thing that I had given them instead of building myself had been taken.
You just gave the perfect example to my theory that it's not the engineers that screw up. It was somebody in management who said it'll never work.
It'll never work. Think about it. Think it through.
Yeah, because their thing was the taxi cab companies will never buy it. Which is true.
Right. Or they'll try and block it, which they've done in many municipalities and countries and so on.
They fought it hard. And so he's like, nope, there's got to be this grid system, and a driver stays in their grid and all the weirdness that goes with taxi cab. Uber said no. Exactly.
I would just give, kudos, plaudits, applause for all these entrepreneurs that start on these amazing journeys, because the entrepreneur lives to do what thousands of people have said cannot be done. You experienced it, unfortunately, but you're an entrepreneur here, right, at PLUGHITZ. So I'm an entrepreneur who started Blumberg Capital. I work with entrepreneurs every day, and we look for that tenacity, that perseverance, that ability to say, I believe because I know certain things that the world doesn't know yet, but it's going to unfold this way. And they paint a picture into the future with the connecting dots that show how they're going to get from A to B. But A to B is not enough. It has to go down the alphabet to become big and scalable. Just give a proverb from Asia, for example. It's true that many cultures and Canadians are guilty of this as well. False modesty. You're too modest as people sometimes. Americans are a little bit bitter at bragging and hypsterism. But let me give a little strength to those that might be too shy or so on. If you're an entrepreneur and you believe in what you're doing and you have the grounds to think that you're not just believing it, but you're knowing it based on data and so on, then there's a proverb in a lot of Asian cultures, but it happens all over the world. There's one in Australia that's similar, and Finland. It basically says, don't stick out, don't stand up. In Asia, it says, the nail that stands up gets hammered down. So that's an anti-entrepreneurial mantra. But also in Asia, there is another one that's from a story about the emperor who had a advisor who was trying to get something to the emperor to approve. And 7 times he went to the emperor, and the emperor said no. And so the man was feeling very dejected. And then he went out into the beautiful Zen garden, walking around to contemplate his sadness. And it was raining, and he saw a spider that kept trying to crawl up a stem of a flower, and it fell down 7 times. And it went up one more, and the 8th, and the sun came out, and it spun its web. And he said, this is my sign. And he went back to the emperor, and this time it passed, and it was approved. So I say that to entrepreneurs, don't give up. Now, prepare yourself for battle, because entrepreneurship is very difficult. As you said, 90% of startups fail. In the venture capital finance group, it's much smaller.
Sure.
Maybe 20% of companies fail, I would say, in the venture world. But you arm yourself for battle, be persistent, but do believe in yourself, because a lot of people will say no. And you have to be your own radar, your own compass, your own GPS.
And that is great advice right there. Because, when you hear, no, can't do it.
Can't be done. Won't work.
And one of the things that we talk about and have said several times this week so far is that entrepreneurs tend to be the ones who don't yet know that something's impossible.
Exactly right.
And do not care.
Exactly right. Now, for example, let me give you this example. As a venture capital fund, Blumberg Capital prides ourselves in having what we'd call prepared mind. We're kind of ready, waiting because we know a ball is coming. We just want to be ready to catch it.
Okay.
So, for example, a company came to us. It's called Lendio, Lendio, and they're doing very well. They're based in Utah, which is not an easy place for VCs to get to. And we don't. Most things are Silicon Valley or New York, but they're often another part of the world. But they came to us with a model that said, small businesses have trouble accessing lending markets, and they have different kinds of needs, and each lender is a different company. So for a small entrepreneur to go to 6 different kinds of lending companies, difficult applications, complicated, et cetera,
each one's so different.
Waste of time and not scalable. They put it all together in a marketplace. And so they brought together, as you said, 2 groups, the borrowers, but through a one-stop shop portal, and then many kinds of lenders. So whether you're looking for trade finance or a general line of credit or a mortgage for a factory or factoring for your receivables, all of those are available from the lending side.
Okay.
We put those together and we help match the appropriate groups. And so they're just thriving. And when they came in, as soon as they said their business model, we said, we've been waiting for you. We've been investing in different kinds of lenders, and we thought, shouldn't there be a centralized place where you can buy everything, no matter what your need? Just like we don't go to a hardware store just for nails or just for bolts or just for screwdrivers. We go to one hardware store that has everything.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing, a prepared mind. So we're ready. And as you say, help us prepare our minds. Reduce the risk. The biggest thing that I would say, advise to an entrepreneur, especially one who's trying to improve their valuation and their chances of being funded, is show us why it's not so risky. You have some customer traction. You have some advisors that are powerful that believe in your idea. You have the training in the domain that shows that you know what you're talking about.
Sure.
You have a technology that is not going to be easy to copy. You have something that's a partnership with a distributor that's going to give you easy reach to massive customer base. These are the kind of things that we look for to try and reduce the risk.
Yeah.
Because the term venture capital does not mean that we're interested in adventures and fantasy and la la land. We're hard-nosed and we're trying to make money for our investors. Our investors include university endowments and pension funds. So people's lives and people's retirements depend on how we invest our money.
Okay.
And we want to see things that are going to persevere and mature. So we're not looking to take unnecessary risk, but we are looking to back those companies that can really succeed and break out of orbit and launch themselves successfully.
Sure. That makes sense. And not everybody knows what a venture capitalist is, and so that was a good way of.
Yeah, I can.
Because it does sound like
maybe give an example. Venture capital is really a new industry. It's only about 50 years old, because traditionally people would say, "Oh, how do I get money to start my business?" Well, I go to my family, I go to my friends, or maybe I go to a bank. Problem with the bank: most banks will not lend to companies that do not already have assets and cash flow.
Right.
So most banks are not the address for the entrepreneur. Sometimes customers can be an address for an entrepreneur. You can get customer financing. You can get sometimes vendor financing. But traditionally, venture capitalists are the ways that entrepreneurs can get enough capital to really scale in a short term.
Gotcha.
And then I'll give you an example of the company that launched today, a company called Hunters.ai. Blumberg Capital actually helped co-create this company. They're based in Israel, and they're solving the problem in the cybersecurity realm, which is a little bit different from most of the things you see here. Most of the things at this conference at Collision are characterized by vendors and customers. The difference in a cybersecurity market is there's a third party with this evil intent, hackers, trying to break or vandalize or steal anything good.
The nefarious actor.
Totally nefarious. And so it's a third party. It makes the dynamics of strategic planning for your business much more complicated, because every new generation of platform, from mainframes to PCs to mobile, has new kinds of vulnerabilities. And each time you put out a patch, then the bad guys are looking, oh, how can I get around the patch? So on and so forth. So it's a cat and mouse game. And what's getting more scary is that it's starting to be powered by artificial intelligence. And as much as the good guys have artificial intelligence now, very soon in a computer near you, there'll be bad guys with AI trying to break in.
And probably malicious intent.
Malicious intent. So Hunters came to the conclusion that since there's this infinite progress of the attacker versus the defender. We need to somehow get ahead of that curve. And there's a shortage of trained security compliance and technical people in the field. It's estimated in the US alone, 300,000 shortfall right now, several million around the world. So we don't have enough people. We have many products. We have a lot of alerts telling the chief security officers that a lot of problems are going wrong, but nobody's there to say how to fix it or stop it. So Hunters takes artificial intelligence, powers artificial bots to be your guardian soldiers running around your network in real time.
Okay.
And then at critical logical kill zones near generally the crown jewels of an organization, your IP of your credit card base, your customer base, your formulas, your recipes, your IP. We help protect these things in real time and alleviate the drudge work. And if we can go into a little bit about AI, a lot of people are afraid of AI, and people are thinking that AI is going to take away all the jobs. Let's look at 200 years of history. In 1776, when the United States declared independence, about 95% of people worked in agriculture. Right. Today, 2% work in agriculture in the United States. We produce far more quantity, safer quality, more nutritious, at a lower cost in real terms.
And new industries have come up to employ people on a grander scale, because there's way more people today than there were.
Exactly. We're feeding a lot more and better. So the thing about artificial intelligence, I like to call it actually augmented intelligence, because intelligence is a human trait. Computers are just doing the grunt work. They're doing the drudge work, and that's where it's going to go. And so we'll see people be able to do more diverse things, more creative things, more strategic things, and leave the boring stuff to the computers. Just as, for example, my grandmother used to have to do the dishes, and now we have dishwashers.
And used to have to crank a car to start it.
So
and
much
now we
of
just
that.
Push a button.
Exactly. So we live in an amazing time. It's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. The communications network, of which you're a big part, is distributing information, knowledge, training that was never available for people in remote villages, etc. And so it's just a blessing to be alive and to be part of this. And I want to thank you for this kind of opportunity. If there's anything else I can ask or answer, happy to do so.
Well, I think we're probably out of time, but we can continue this conversation offline.
Awesome.
In particular for the write-up for the video.
I'd be glad.
If people want to find out more about your firm, and maybe see your portfolio and things like that, how can they do so? Sure.
Blumberg Capital is based in San Francisco, New York, and Tel Aviv. Our portfolio companies are spread around the world, and our website is www.blumbergcapital, BLUMBERGCAPITAL.com. And we look forward to hearing from you with a business plan, questions, ideas. We're always open to partner with corporations and entrepreneurs and put those two together to build the future.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come talk to us.
My pleasure.
Today.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of Collision.
I will. Cheers.